All right, I guess we are live. Hello, Bert.
Hello, Didrik. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Today, we are here to talk about content modeling once again. It's not the first time, but it's an important topic that I think we'll need to talk about quite often. And with me, like I said, here's Bård, our CEO in Crystallize. We're going to take you through how to model a car in Crystallize, and also with our content modeling kit.
Yeah, we will also show off the new shiny content modeling kit that you've created. So there's a new iteration. We have done a couple of streams already on our previous content modeling kit. We've just improved it and refreshed it a little bit. And this stream is also to support the ebook and the blog post that we did on content modeling for eCommerce. And we'll talk about some principles and do some modeling and show things live. That's how I would like to do it. But first off, so what is content modeling? I'm not sure, Didrik, if you want to take a stab at the definition from your perspective.
I like that you put me on the stand first off, but I'll give it a go. Basically, content modeling is planning ahead what your content will be, or structure your content in a way that it can work over multiple channels, not only for the web, not only for a specific channel, basically. So the general idea is that we'll create a content model or structure our information in such a way that we can use it for both the web, PDFs, points of sales, native apps, or whatever you want. So it's always recognizable. Was that okay?
I think that's a good definition, Didrik. I could have said it better myself, or not. Yeah, but in terms of the importance of content modeling, because this is we find that we do a lot of meetings with our partners and clients on content modeling. And one of the benefits of what we will show today with the content modeling kit, which is a visualization or just call it documentation of the content modeling, is that you have a common understanding between the different stakeholders on the full model. And stakeholders could be information architects, understanding and organizing all of your information, editorial users that create campaigns, product pages, marketing content, developers, of course, and especially for us, as we are a headless service, all of the data is available in a structured API. So having the link between the definition and the APIs for the developer, I find that quite useful. Designers is an important persona, yeah, because if you're going to make a design, you need to know what type of information you have access to, right? And of course, finally, why we're doing this is the final customers, the visitors of your app or your web shop, or basically your customers.
Exactly what I said, Bård.
Yeah, I think it's the same.
You elaborated, which is good. All right, that was a long intro.
And I also just want to mention one thing, because in terms of misconceptions with content modeling, it's often a thing that, okay, this is something that the developers fix. But it has implications for editorial users and for reuse and for a lot of topics. So it's typically an iterative process with multiple stakeholders, and you probably will not get it perfect the first time around. So to have this iterative process, I think, is important. But to support this, I believe you have some bling to show, Mr. Didrik.
Oh, I do. First off, if you want to read more after this live stream, we also have this blog post that Bård has created. It also includes a PDF that you can download if you want to take it to the sofa instead of reading it on your tablet instead of your computer.
It is linked in the description below.
Yeah, then we're all golden. So next up, let's introduce the content modeling kit. You can find it here. It's in the Figma community. If you search for content modeling, or even Crystallize, I guess, you will find it. We just released it. So duplicate it into your team or just as a project. It's up to you. But what you want to get is this file. So what we get here is what we call the content modeling kit, where you have a selection of all Crystallize shapes and components. Shapes and components are what's going to store your information. And whenever you create a product or item, it's a shape with different components. And what the components are on the shape is 100% up to you. It should mirror what you would like to show on given channel.
And basically what you're showing here is you have installed the content modeling kit in this Figma file that is called content models, and then you get it available automatically under assets there. That's the way it works, right?
That's the goal. Yes.
Yeah. That's the starting point. Then the install of the design system is done. Should we do some modeling?
I guess we have 6 minutes of intro, so let's do it.
And I think we can also define two approaches, because there's two schools or two types of content models. And it's what we would call channel or page-oriented modeling, which is typically specific for a channel. For example, it is just to support a website or a web page or an app or things like this. And then you have the semantic or structured modeling, which is more where you have content that has a longer time to live and that you can reuse across multiple channels. So I guess the craft here is to really balance what do you make as structured content and what do you make as channel specific content. And there is also no specific right or wrong here, because it depends on how you're going to use it. So let's look at the car, which is, we will do the same example as is in the blog post. It's a car modeled two ways, to call it.
Right. And like you said, Bård, time to live. So creating a car, we usually start out with the structural shapes and components, because that will be the foundation of what you're creating. Everything else, channel specific, is supportive of these models. So getting down to the basics, what's the details of this car that we need to sell it online, basically, or talk about it?
And in this case, we'll make a simplified model, obviously, because a car can be quite complex with different models, accessories, options, and so on. But just to explain the difference between the, here you have an example of a quite detailed
model.
Model. But let's start with the simple one and just call a shape for a car. And a shape is, as Didrik said, is a type of product, or it could be also a type of document, which we will also create. And you can also have hierarchical documents, which we call folders. But all share the same concept of you can add any components to the shape as you want. And let's just call this a car.
Important notice, since this is Figma, we kind of model it after Figma. Whenever you drag and drop a shape or a components that you want to edit or add stuff to, you will have to detach it. So that's more of a practical information about the kit here. So as soon as you detach this, we can start dragging and dropping components as well into the shape. Like Bård said, components are fields for your product.
And if we think about this as a structured product called car, the first thing is probably to figure out what make is this, what model, what brand, do you have? And what we typically do in this situation is, because we know that we have lots of cars from Alfa Romeo, for example, or whatever type of car you're working with, and we then use a relation so that you can reuse the information across multiple products.
So,
for example, what do we want to have on the make? So we need a name,
probably a
logo, description or a history about.
So, image component. So this is just, of course, a representation of what we have in Crystallize. So image component, you said name. Let's add a name. I will go for a single line component. I'm a goldfish. I stopped remembering the third one.
Yeah, so but some type of descriptive text, so about or description, just is a typical field you have to have a small blurb about it. Yeah. Maybe even a link to the website, but let's just keep it like this, just so that you can display the logo of the name of the brand.
And once again, this is up to you to define what you need. You could also add locations there, like office location, dealerships, stuff like this. But let's just keep the example simple.
And the point of this is to show the structured versus the channel-specific approach. And so then on the car, because we could have added an image component directly on the car so that you upload the logo and you type in the name of the brand, but that makes that information non-structured, as in you can't reuse it across multiple products.
Which also means that every time you create a car product, you will have to fill in that information. So avoiding that by creating a relation to a make document, you only have to fill out the make once, like Alfa Romeo, add the logo, add some text about Alfa Romeo. And on the car, we would then rather add a relation component and call it make. Every time we create a car product, we will just add the make relation to the specific type, of course.
Nice. Should we also add on the car just and by the way, if you have a product shape in Crystallize, you automatically get the product images, you get the pricing, the variance attributes, and all the basic product information that's already available in the products. But we would probably like to extend it with some sort of brief description and product story, as we call it.
Let's do it. So for a brief, is what you would often show on a micro format of the car on, in example, a web page. You have the name or the model, and then you have a brief introduction to what this car is. Most beautiful car ever created, or something like that. Then we have the complete product story, which we'll come back to. Let's add the brief first. Brief, added a rich text component.
If you switch the E and I there also, I will be even more happy.
Oh, that helps. There we go.
And this is also typically used in search results, and where you have if you put it on a landing page and you want to be able to reuse just that snippet. But we're about storytelling and creating long form descriptions, and that is this paragraph collection that you're dragging now. Yeah. And this is a magical component, as it's a grouping of a text line, a rich text, and one or more or any number of images and videos in a repeating structure, so that you get nice chunked paragraphs that are designed for writing for the web or any channel.
And fun fact is that our blog post, the same blog that we showed, are based on a paragraph collection and a couple of more components. But it is Crystallize.
True that. And let's add some structure, because you typically have properties on a car, like curb weight, or you might have wheelbase, and you might have displacement, the size of the engine. There are different ways to model this. If we're going to be structured as we want this example to be, we could use either properties table or we can use a chunk. And I am quite fan of the chunk because it allows you to group components and semantically describe them. So a chunk here would be the specs or something like this. And again, you have to detach when you add specs. And in this case, I would also like to know the exact amount of kilograms and how many meters the wheelbase is, and also then how many liters the displacement is. And we have a numeric component for that, which is quite useful, where you can define the number of decimals, and you can also define the what do we call it, the quantitative measurements, so that you can be specific. Yeah, the units. So if we start with curb weight, or just weight, and then that would be in kilograms, and we only need that. Yeah, grams if you have maybe if you want to reuse it for toy cars.
Yeah. Smart e-cars.
Should we do another one where we want to have a wheelbase? So the length between the wheels. And this would be typically in meters with 2 decimals. 2.25 is what we are going to type in here later.
Then I'll guess 2. Good point. Meters?
Yeah.
I'll do it. Of course, we could have 0 decimals and just go for centimeters.
Or millimeters if you're in engineering.
Yeah. True enough.
And then let's just do displacement. And of course, this is just examples of we're adding some properties, and you can group them and create this semantic description of them.
So,
and this would be in liters, I guess.
How many decimals do you want?
1.
1 decimal. Oh, you also need to click a lot to get into the right component if you're just using the mouse like me. So if I want to change the text here, I'm clicking like crazy just to get here.
Okay, so this is a simple model. And what we have defined here is also a relation between the car and the make. And typically we add some arrows in the diagram just to illustrate that.
Oh, yes, we do. So from the make relation to the make shape. We'll show you how this works inside of Crystallize soon. One important thing that we forgot to mention about chunk is that this is repeatable. So hence why we also do this. We might not want it for this car because it only has
that is exactly correct. But a chunk can be conditional so that you can fill it in or not. And it could be repeatable. In this case, it's not a repeating chunk. It's a single chunk.
My point exactly.
But example of a repeating a chunk could be a quantity, like a number of items in a relation to a single product, which could be upsell options, for example. And it could be then repeated with one, what do you call it, roof rack, and another could be 4 wheels of a different brand or size or whatever you want to change the wheels for. So there are cases for having repeating chunks. People will not dive into that now. So this is I would say this is if you leave it there, this is a structured approach to doing content modeling for a car. We have the reusability of the information about the make, and you know exactly the amount of liters of displacement and also the weight of the car.
Right. So should we create those shapes inside of Crystallize, I guess?
We can do that. And then we can also do another example with the unstructured approach. But let's model out this in Crystallize.
I'm going to create a new live stream. Car. Model. Live stream. Yeah, that was right. There we go. Create a new tenant. Missed the button. Okay. There we go. So here we have a fresh tenant. Default shapes as always. Product, folder, and article. We can use the default shape for products now. Oh, you know what?
Well,
We'll
you should
actually create
name
it.
it car. Yeah. Well, I
I'll
think that's
rename
better.
it car.
Be semantic, mister.
I'll be semantic. This is about information architecture after all. All right. So here you can see we are inside of a shape. We're going to create a shape called car. And then I will need to bring up this to see what we define. The car, shape, relation, rich text, and a story. We'll do those first. So here you can see the same components. Here, make. We'll go for breathe. Let's see here. And goldfish story. Oh.
And of course, you could just create the shapes directly in Crystallize, but the point of the design system is to use it for documentation. And if you're doing it really well, you can print it out and put it on the wall and be proud of it, because it will be a beautiful diagram.
It's also, after the initial content model, it's easier to iterate in Figma than to start rearranging all your content inside of Crystallize, because you might have data there already. So it's good to have a plan ahead, and then you can do different iterations. So, okay, this is the first iteration of the content model, and this is where we're going.
Very good point. And also on the now, Didrik is showing drag and drop to create shapes, which is awesome, and especially during initial modeling. For enterprise projects, you of course typically define this in code. So there's a import export SDK in Crystallize, which is basically allows you to define it in TypeScript. So merging them between development, staging, and production, and doing incremental updates, etc. That's when you're doing it enterprise. But this is a very good way to start and also to build the initial model, because it's so quick. And now you're adding the specs, and I'll just hide us a little bit.
There we go. So now we've created the car shape.
That is correct, but what about the make?
We'll need to do that as well. So here we go. We have a document instead of a product now, because now we don't need pricing, image variants, or variants in general. Everything that has to do with the product. Now it's just a plain document with some content on it.
So basic structured content that you can use for creating information, in this case about a brand.
Exactly. So here, name, logo, and a about. That's what we want to say. Here we go. There we go. So both the make and the car. One more thing I want to do before we move forward is to do here. You can see under the relation that we have something called accepted shapes. So here we can restrict this relation component to only take one make relation, or one type of shape, I mean, which is here.
Super neat to have this content quality rules there. And you can also, I guess now you have the min max to, you don't have to add one, but you can also say that that this is maximum one and maybe minimum one, so it's a required.
Yeah, someone usually has a make for a car. I think that's a good idea. So basically what we did here with the accepted shape is to create that arrow relation. So that represents, okay, this is a restriction that we create on our model. It only takes the make.
Nice. And this is the structured approach. And could you then also just show how it is to create a car? If you want to, fill it in editorial. Now we want to create one item of the shape car, right? So you create a new product.
Yeah. Here you can see we have our car. This is the default shape that just comes whenever you create a new tenant. You can delete that if you don't want it. But we created a car shape. I guess, okay, give me a car model on board. This is your field.
Duetto.
Duetto. It's like this.
Yeah.
create that, and here we go.
And also notice this big red warning. You have to define a make. This is the content quality rules.
Yes, indeed.
So you will not be able to publish this before you have
A make.
a make. So
maybe we should do that first.
Good catch.
Oh, Romeo. Better do it right.
Yeah, but it's with F and not P.
Alpha.
Mm-hmm.
I know my cars.
No, that's. We're not here to show off content creation. We're content modeling.
And that's good.
We can't help you with spelling. That's Grammarly.
Yeah, it is. So that's on me.
Mm-hmm.
So here we go. We have a make called Alfa Romeo. Of course, you would probably structure this in a tree-based structure on the left side here, because you can also create folders, and then you would have a folder called make, and in there you would add all your brands, basically. So we're going to publish. So here you can see we have the name. We also have a bio, or an about, and a logo.
If you want the logo, I sent you a Slack message with the logo, if you have that on another screen.
I do. Okay, I'll download those. There we go.
Which is a great example of how we prepared for this. We did it now.
Isn't it always? Give me a sec. I'll figure out download here. I see that the name here is Image 16 board. I'll rename that to Alfa Romeo logo.
That's good.
Naming of images.
That's important for SEO. Yeah.
Oh, so I'll drag and drop this here.
Nice.
This is a good car brand. There we go.
Nice.
Right. Then we can go in here. So now you can see we have the Alfa Romeo here. Let's drag it here. Oh, red warning's gone. Perfect.
Nice.
But I guess could you also send me a image of a cardboard?
If you scroll a little bit more up on the Slack message there.
Here we go. Okay.
And this is just the images that we used in the blog post, so that's why I sent it to Derek. In case somebody wondered.
We'll go that one. That was a beautiful one. There we go.
And then if you scroll down, you will then have the empty state of the brief, the story, and the specs. And here we have the brief is just a rich text field. So you can add a short description, typically a short blurb. And then for the story, let's showcase that because it's a magical component. It's a repeating structure. And this is also to enforce a little bit the best practices of writing for the web, where you have a header, you have a section, maybe you have some bullet list and some images, and then you keep repeating. Yeah, good.
It all began in something like that.
Sure, that's when they started to make cars.
Yeah. So how we created this car, how it came to be, same story almost, but you know the drift. You add paragraphs, and in here, of course, let's add another image. I'll drag and drop here. Just extend your story, basically. So it enforces some paragraphs to be a better readability or better reader experience.
Structured approach to storytelling, I would say. So it's super nice to work with. And then the specs. This is the structured chunk. So it's a grouping of 3 components that Didrik made here. And here you see that you have the possibility of saying, okay, what's the weight? I would say 950 kilos or something like that.
You can see it.
Not 1,900. That's too much.
Okay,
it's not.
Okay then.
It's a light car. Complaining
It's a
about
light
the
car.
content.
Yeah, I thought that was all right.
For a truck. Wheelbase 2.25, I think it said. Not that that is important. And then 1.6 liters, just as an example of, we know how many liters displacement, we know the wheelbase, and we know the weight of the car. Which means that you can use this to compare cars. You can use it to calculate, size of your garage. I don't know, but you have the information. It's not just content that is displayed on the website. You know the actual units of the weight. So this is 950 kilos, and then you could, for example, quite easily compare a lot of different cars. And this is where you could also add other performance specifications like acceleration, horsepower, and all of these things. Other specs could be, what do you call it? Environmental specs, CO2s, etc. Because this is a vintage gasoline car, just to take a very, very relevant car example, because okay, beautiful Didrik. If we take quickly another example of this and just make a channel specific or a non-structured approach to this. So we can call this and this is let's do something very web specific, and just as an example, and then directly on the shape I would do like an image with logo. You would have a text line for the make, perhaps.
So for
so you would, and this is just an example, but and now we want to say that, okay, we just created content that is going to be used for being displayed on the web. So we're not thinking reuse, we're not thinking other channels and future configurations or what have you. So you delete the make, so you simplify it somehow, because we know that for this context we will only have one car of that make, and we only need to display the name and the logo on the website or the app, right? Which could be a totally valid example. So if we would do I would just do an image component, logo, and a text line.
Logo?
Mm-hmm. A text line for the make. Can you also, is it possible to drag and change the order of the components here in Figma? Or?
Oh, of course, yeah.
Sweet.
You want the logo on top, because of course this also represents how the order should be. However you create the order inside the shape, that's how it's going to be displayed whenever you create a product.
And maybe in this case, this could be a simpler editorial experience for the marketeers that are creating the content, while sacrificing structure. So these are, the decisions that you have to think about. If we do something, just remove the specs and use just a rich text field for the specs, which is also, because you could think that if you're just going to display the curb weight and displacement and wheelbase, it could just be a bullet list in a rich text, right? It's nothing wrong with it. It's a different approach. And maybe also you want some display hints, like a logo placement, like a selection thing. So that you can give a display hint to the front end. So logo placement or something like this.
Oh.
And then maybe, I don't know, you're the designer, left, center, right, something like this.
That's exactly what I thought. Just move it until it fits. Left, center. Okay. Then
so
we could add a bit of structure here as well, because we could chunk the logo placement and the logo together, since it's correlated.
Yeah, go for it.
I'll do it.
Just to make it a little bit more advanced.
Yeah. Once again, this is all It's preferences and what you are going to use your content for. We don't have a specific, this is how you should do it. It's more, what are your content? What do you need it for? How are you going to use it? And how are
as
you
an
going
example for our React Norway and React New York conferences, we're actually using this concept where you can choose if the illustration is on the left side or the right side, because we have repeating chunks, and we know that this information is only going to be used for the website, and it's to give, in this case, Neborsha the freedom to make it look pretty, right? So that's totally valid. Even though I'm super much more fan of the structured approach, this is so useful in many cases.
Yeah, I am as well. The structure is more reusable. But then again, we know that the React Norway website is going to be on the web. We don't need that information otherwhere or any other places. So we can do it web specific. Hence, we also have display and render tips. Okay, so then you can configure how is this section. Illustrations right, illustrations left, text center, stuff like that. And that is a valid approach.
Yeah, and this is the main difference between structured approach and specific, is that you add, either call it hints or directions that is specific for how it's going to be presented in a channel. Because as I say, the holy grail of structured content is that you can reuse it on any channel, and it's up to the channel to render it. But sometimes you want to have some control over that. So this is a good example. And also, you could combine it with having a structured base of your shape, and then having some channel-specific information, for example, in a chunk. And the Hello World example there would be meta information for the web page. Yes. So meta for you can do an example there.
I'll show that because it's a reoccurring thing that we always do. It's meta on a product. Often you have different aspect ratios for product images and for what you need for OD share, for example, for Facebook or Twitter or whatever.
Yeah.
So we would add meta image. Once again, naming, semantic, it's meta image. If you go even higher, it's car or product car meta image.
And then you do, is it description? Title and description, is that?
That is what you need.
And this will translate into then meta tags for the web page, and typically you reuse that for all the OG share and Twitter shares and what Didrik just mentioned. And this is channel specific, but it is structured, right? So it's nothing wrong with that. And editorially, you can say that you could choose, if the meta information is not filled in, you can default to the main product image, the name of the product, and the brief description of the product. So that you can have some optional editorial overrides of meta information, to put it like this. But if we should we try to model out the car that is non-semantic?
We can of course do that.
We can call it car for the web. I don't know, what should we call it?
Car for the web. Is that what you want?
Yeah, go for it. It's
you would usually go car web or something. You can do that as well. Let's go back to our creation here. I'll create a new one so we have both. Now we do this again. Here we have make as a single line. We have I added to a chunk just to add some structure. Make logo. Make image. We added a selection so we can add logo placement.
In this case, you probably will just call it placement, as you already said that this is a make logo. Okay.
I thought the same thing.
And of course, the details here is a lot to do with the naming and the hierarchy of information, because as we usually say, if we don't take care of the naming, we could have called everything here meta, 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 and meta. right? That's it's all information that we're trying to give some meaning and structure.
Here is perfect example that.
Yeah, you only want to have one choice. Yeah.
Okay. Then we add brief story spec.
Mm-hmm.
Just do that. Story.
Are you sure about that component?
I'm not sure about that component at all because I want a paragraph collection. That's what? Yes, it is. There we go.
Mm-hmm.
That was it.
Beautiful. And now let's check the editorial experience and how that is different.
Here we have it. Card web. For the web. Of course, we wouldn't have both here now in this same flat structure. So that just for us now. So same thing. You get the images, prices, stock, and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
But now we have, instead of the relation, we have a make here, which is alpha. And then we'll add, once again, we need to select something. I want the logo center since it's a round shape.
And round is also a shape.
It is. Here we go. Still a nice car. Once again, we have the story. And like Bård said, specs.
And here we would maybe just do a bullet list, because if you're just going to show it on the web as a list of weight, so just do weight, for example, or
weight.
Yeah.
Let's just see here. 950 kilos.
Mm-hmm.
And we had
wheelbase. 2.25 meters. I think I'm not sure if it's correct, but that's not the point. Displacement, which is another way of saying size of the engine, 1.6 liters. So there's nothing wrong with this model. Of course, that's the colored way of or opinionated way of saying it. Nothing wrong with it if you choose this approach. Editorial, it might even be easier because you don't have to have the relation to the make, and it's more simplified, and it's almost a one-to-one with the information that you're going to display. Downside is reuse. You duplicate content if you have more cars that have the same make, for example. The bonus is that you could add this specific information about how to display it on a specific channel. That being said, you can, of course, combine the two, and maybe the ideal model for your setup is somewhere in the middle, where you can have a structured base and then have channel-specific hints, display hints or information about, maybe have a smaller image here, a large image, right align, things like this. And I think we can already promise a follow-up. We're doing a new release of our remix boilerplate, which is it's a furniture store example, and there we've done some quite structured and unstructured way of modeling the content, where we have very specific or web-specific display information in the content model, which works really, really nice.
So that's next up.
That's next up.
We won't go into that today. But I think, like you said, I think often the solution is a hybrid, where you have a bit of both worlds. Often, at least for folders, for example, in Crystallize, you often need some content to, as a generic website, to talk about the category, for example. this is what we're selling here, and this is the story. Then you might have a structured folder that has a group ID or a category ID and stuff like this. That might be two separate things, or two separate shapes, I mean.
Good.
Okay, information overload.
Perfect example, Didrik. I think I understand the difference between structured and channel-specific content modeling. If not, I'll go to the blog post and I'll download the PDF and I'll join your Slack community.
Oh, you mean this one?
Yeah.
And the Slack community?
Yeah.
I mean this one?
Yeah.
Okay. That's the marketing for today.
Okay. We'll come back with some even more streams on content modeling. We'll do some more advanced examples and also more for specifically for our Remix furniture boilerplate. That is a promise. But for now, over and out.
Over and out. All right. We'll leave it at that. See you, Internet.